Hello kids, our objective today is to be doing some division. It's not going to be nearly as basic as it was yesterday, so you're going to really want to make sure you're not only writing and watching, but listening as well. So I'm going to go really slow. I actually will only end up doing one full one in your notes because I'm going to go through the process really slow for you. So make sure your notes are open to this page because you're going to need to refer to them today, I think, while you're doing your homework. So our objective today is going to be, as it was yesterday, by the end, we will be able to do division, and it says it right here, by a binomial, but I'm going to put long division, which is maybe making you kind of a little nauseous thinking back to elementary school long division. And sadly but true, I'm going to go way back there to elementary school so we can revisit the process of long division. I will not be asking you to do numerical long division, but we are going to mimic the process. So I really just want to revisit. It's kind of interesting because the first year we got these books, our old books didn't used to have long division in them, and so kids never really saw it until they were in Algebra 2. And the first year we got this book as a team of exponential algebra teachers, we said, you know what, we're not going to make them do this section. And we made it optional. And we began the lesson with, this is really kind of long and complicated. We're just going to expose you to it. If you can do it, great. It'll be extra credit. If you can't, no worries. We weren't going to put it on the test. Well, what happened was the ninth graders tended to do way better on it than the Algebra 2 students did. And we thought, well, then we might as well be doing it here if this is kind of where it seems to fit in the learning hierarchy, that it tends to be done easier the younger you are. And I think when we thought about why that was, it's because you're mimicking numerical long division, and as a ninth grader, you're much closer to that process than you will be when you're in 11th grade. Once you get to 11th grade, you know, it's going to have been good 6 years since you've done long division, so it makes sense that Algebra 2 students generally tend to struggle with this, seeing it for the first time, more so than exponential students. So having said that, we are going to take and go through the process with numbers only, just so you can revisit the process of long division. Then we're going to apply it to polynomials. So let's begin here. When you first learn long division, keep in mind what you do first. You grab this number that's farthest to the left, and you might be saying, LaRude, duh, I know I totally know if I had you long divide this, you would probably all do it correctly. But it's the process, not the answer, that I really want you to kind of focus on. We take this number that's farthest to the left, that's 7, and we basically just ignore the other ones, and we do 7 divided by 4, and we say that is evenly only a 1. And then what do? Well, you know that you write a 4 down here, but keep in mind why. Really what you're doing is you're saying 1 4 gives you a 4. Then what we do when we get to this stage is we subtract. When we have our polynomial long division, it's going to start off identically. We are going to take what is farthest to the left, and we are going to divide them. We're going to write that down right above here. And then we're going to put the product next, and then we're going to subtract, and we get a 3. And if I were to ask you, what do I do right now? You'd probably say, drop the 6 down. Well, when we do polynomial long division, that's the exact next step we're going to take. We're going to drop that next term down. Now what do? I take this, and I repeat. I divide it by 4, and that one's a nice even 9. And 9 times 4 is 36, and I write it down. And then I subtract again, and I get 0. And then I drop the next term down. And I say, how many 4s go into 3? And I go, oh, I don't have any. So what do? I drop the next term down. And again, I repeat. And you might say, repeat what? I'm always dividing this by 4, then what's left after I subtract by 4, and then again, I'm asking myself, what's 35 divided by 4? And I would say, well, 8 is the most I can get. So 8 times 4 is 32. And I again subtract. So notice it's we call this an iterative process in higher levels of math. You're just kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again. When I'm down here and I'm at 3 and I'm all out of stuff to drop down, there's nothing left, then when you're first taught this, you're taught to write that as a remainder. And you would write R3. But then when you got a little older, you didn't say, well, when I do 5 divided by 2, I get 2R1. You would say 2 and 1/2. So really, we are going to write this as 1,908 and 3/4. Now, we have done this, but this is not our task today. Our task is going to be, can we do it with polynomials? So I really want to make sure you follow that process. We are going to mimic it. So everybody pay attention here. This is a big skill, and it's kind of difficult if you don't have a series of steps. So first of all, we are going to be dividing by a binomial. Yesterday we did a monomial. So remember, this is what we mean by dividing by a binomial. It has 2 terms in it. So the first thing we're going to do is lay this all out in its long division format. So we're going to just slowly, and again, I'm going to go really slow through this one. I'm going to take 3d squared minus 4d plus 13, and I'm going to divide it by, so I'm going to put it under the division bar, and I'm going to divide it by d plus 3. I'm just going to pause here because I want everybody focusing, not writing. So hence, I'm going to go really slow through this example. It's the only one I'm actually going to do, and then we'll go do some on the homework. So our division process, keep in mind what we did on the last page, and I want you to take your pencil, and I want you to either circle or underline. I'm going to underline, but this term that's farthest to the left, and then this D that's farthest to the left. And I want you to ignore everything else and do what we did on the previous page. When we had a 7 inside and a 4 outside, we divided them. And so the first thing we want to do here is divide those things that are farthest to the left, which is 3d squared, by d. So the first thing up isn't anything you don't know how to do. We're just going to divide. So when I take 3d squared and divide it by d, you even might want to put a little thing here so when you look at your notes, you can know that we are dividing those. That's a little division symbol. When I do 3d squared and I chop out a d, I get 3d. And just like with numerical long division, you put it right above. Next, you need to take, and just like with numerical division, you need to multiply this back. Now just wait a minute, so I'm going to go back a page to show you the process being mimicked here. When we got a 1 right here, because 7 divided by 4 is 1, to write the next term, we really said 1 times 4 is 4, and we wrote it down. You don't feel like you're multiplying it because it's a skill you're already good at, but you actually are. So we're going to multiply that 3d by not only d, but the entire binomial. And I like to go like this. I'm going to multiply 3d by what's outside of the division symbol. When I do that, I get 3d squared, that's this, plus 9d. That's this. You multiply it by both of them. So write on your notes a little deal that says multiply. Again, we're going really slow here. We multiply that in and we get a 3d squared plus 9d. And what did we do with our numerical division at this time? We drew a bar and we subtracted. But here's the thing, when you're subtracting a lot of stuff, it's tempting to make a sign error. So right at this point, I'm going to tell you I don't like to subtract. I am going to add the opposite instead. So I want you to go do that. Change your subtraction to addition and change the signs on everything after it. Now when we add this up, you'll notice that we don't get any d squareds. 3d squared minus 9d squared is 0, and that should always happen or you've done something wrong. I'm going to repeat that. They should always wipe out their farthest to the left. Now for my next terms, I've got a negative 4d plus a negative 9d. That gives me negative 13d. And in our long division process, we drop down the next term. This is where kids tend to get stuck. So listen carefully. You are going to basically, like washing your hair, wash, rinse, and repeat. It's an iterative cycle, and it means you do it over and over again. You might say, well, what do I do over and over again? You again grab that leftmost term. Go ahead and underline it. And you do what you did with it up here. You divide it by D, and you should already have it underlined or circled, so that should help you. So again, I'm going really slow because I have lots of markings here. When I do my negative 13D divided by D, I would get a negative 13. Again, I'm just dividing these two underlined terms. I'm going to do it in green. I wish I even had more colors for this. And negative 13d, when I divide out a d, is a minus 13. Well, now what do I do? The same thing I did last time. Again, it's the same process over and over again. I'm going to multiply that negative 13 by d plus 3. It's going to give me a negative 13d minus 39. How did I get that? So you can watch, everybody stop and don't write. I took this minus 13 and I multiplied it by d and by 3. And that's where I got that minus 13d minus 39. Now what do I do? The same thing I did last time. It's the same process over and over again. Well, I subtract to go down a level, but I don't like subtraction. So I am going to choose, everybody watch what I'm doing right now, to add the opposites. You'll notice that these give you 0 right here, and they always will. Negative 13d plus 13d is 0. 13 plus 39 is 52, and I'm all out of things to drop down. What that means is I've hit my remainder. My remainder is 52, but I don't want to write big R 52 because that's not generally how we write things. We write it as a fraction, and we write it as 52 over d plus 3, what's outside of the division symbol. And on your key for your homework, they'll put a little plus in here, but you really don't need that there. All right, so that process should be very rocky right now. If I were to ask you to rate yourself on a scale of 0 to 4 on the side of my board there where those colored sheets, you should be at about a 1. Like, you can start to practice, but you still need some help finishing them. And we are going to do that right now. We are going to have you, instead of practicing a bunch in your notes, I would like it if the sub or Mr. Nelson or Miss Dutzman or whoever could pass out the salmon colored sheet that says 11-3B. And you'll notice that on there are 10 on the front and 10 on the back. You might be saying, holy moly, that's a ton. Well, you only have to do the front. The back is extra credit, and if you want to do that, I'll come back and show you how, and I'll do one on the back. But we only are going to do the front. We're going to do 1 through 10, and that's what's due. You have to show all your work on a separate sheet of paper. We have over a half an hour, but we're going to do a couple together. So you're going to show your work on a separate sheet. So take out a separate sheet of blank paper, please. And if the sub could maybe pause this video in just a second until everybody has a blank sheet of paper out. We're going to label it 11-3B. 1 through 10 is the assignment. 11 through 20 is extra credit. I'll give quite a bit of extra credit for that because it's quite a big chunk of work to do that backside. So if you need a few extra points, you might want to take that option. But you're only required to do 1 through 10. And we're going to go do a couple of the evens together. We will do probably 2, 6, and 10, I think. Those will be the ones we choose to do. All right, are we ready to go? So, if everyone's ready, we'll go do number 2 together. Number 2, let's go ahead and write it down. We're taking n squared minus n minus 29. So let's go put down our division bar. N squared minus n minus 29. And we're dividing it by n minus 6. It's going to take a couple of these to work the process out. I'd even kind of want you right now to rank yourself on a scale of 0 to 4. And I'm thinking most of you should be going 0, 1, or 2 at this point. But maybe after we get through with number 10, maybe you'll be ready to rank yourself at a 3. Probably not a 4 with this skill. All right, we're ready to go. So we are doing division. Here's our process. It's the same thing over and over again. We stick to the left. Where do we go? Say it louder. Where do we go? To the left. So we're going to take the leftmost term under the division and the leftmost term outside the division. And I would circle them or double underline them, or better yet, if you have a highlighter, highlight them. What do I do with those? I just divide them. I ignore everything else and I do n squared divided by n. And what I get is an n, and I write it up here. That's how I start. Now what do I do next? I multiply that n back into both terms. So I'm really doing n times n minus 6, technically, which will give me an n squared when I do n times n, and a minus 6n. I draw a bar, and I subtract. But I hate subtracting when things are all strung out like that. So I'm going to make a decision to help me avoid sign errors to change that subtraction to addition, and every other sign I will take the opposite. Now when I add them up, the n squareds are gone. That will always happen. I get 0 n squared, so I'm not even going to write anything down. These will always disappear and be nothing. I have a negative n, which is really one of them, plus 6 more of them, which gives me 5 of them. I've now dropped a level. I do just what I do in numerical division, and I drop the next term down. This is where I say wash, rinse, and repeat. You're going to do the same process over again. You're like a computer program that's been programmed to stick to the left, divide, multiply, go to the, so what am I going to do next? I'm going to stick to the left. And again, you should already have this underlined, so that should trigger you. You might even want to circle it or highlight it. It helps. It makes a mess on my smartboard, but you might want to just go grab a highlighter. I'm going to go grab one so you can see it really quickly. There might be some up on my front table for when you're doing your homework. But we are taking this one and dividing it by that one first. Once we go to the next level, we're repeating that. So I'm taking the 5n and dividing it by n. 5n divided by n is just 5. And I write it up here. And then what do? The same thing I did last time. I multiply this in to both terms. 5n times n is 5n. There should always be a match there or you did something wrong. I'm going to go keep this all blue here. 5n times a minus 6, so watch your signs, is a negative 30. Then I draw a line and I subtract, but I hate subtraction, so I add the opposites. And now I add them up. These will always go, or you did something wrong. Negative 29 plus 30 is a 1. I'm all out of drop downs, which means I've hit my remainder. But I don't want to write big R1. I'm going to write 1 over n minus 6. 1 over n minus 6. And if you go look on the key, this is what you're going to see. They're going to have an n plus 5, and then it's going to say plus 1 over n minus 6. So you'll know if you're doing them right. Again, if you just have the answers, there's no way anyone can do this in their head. I can't, and I've been teaching it for years. So there's number 2. We're going to go try another one here. We're going to go try number 6. And I'm going to have you put some eyeballs on this one here. With number 6, you'll notice that you have a squared and then just a minus 28. What I'm going to suggest you do with that, when we put it in standard form, we have a squared, then we don't have any a's. And I want you to put a 0 there so you can see it. You don't have any a's, and then a minus 28. So when you're missing a term in your standard form, you know how it goes, like exponent of 2, then 1, ax squared plus bx plus c kind of thing. If there's one of them missing, like on 6, 8, and 10, go put a 0 in front, just so you can see it. So we have that written down, and we're dividing it by a minus 5. Now we should be getting a little bit more comfortable with how we start. We start by sticking to the left. That's how you start every problem, every problem, and then every time you move down a level, you repeat that again. So we stick to the left. A highlighter is helpful, so I'm going to go grab one here so you can see me highlighting it. So I'm going to take what's farthest to the left and divide it by what's farthest to the left. When I do that, I have a squared divided an a out gives me just an a. I'm going to go a little faster now. What do I do with that a? I dump it right back into both of them. A times a is a squared. There will always be a match there. A times minus 5 is minus 5a. I draw a bar. At this point, I subtract, but I hate to subtract. So everybody watch. The reason I hate to subtract is because when it's strung that far out, you're going to make a sign error. So we're going to make an executive decision, a smart decision, that instead of subtracting, I'm going to add. Everybody watch. But when I do that, I have to take the opposite of everything that follows it. Now when I add these up, this first one goes, it always will, or you did something wrong. And this is why I had you put the 0 there so you weren't tempted to add 28 or something. It's 0 a's plus 5 a's gives me 5 a's. What do? I do a drop down. Now I'm at the next level. Wash, rinse, and repeat. I'm going to go back and grab my highlighter, and you better know what I'm going to be highlighting. I'm going to highlight this because I'm going to repeat the process. I'm going to take that 5a and divide out an a. When I do that, 5a divided by a is just a 5. And I put it up here, and then I dump it in again. 5a times a is 5a. There will always be a match on that leftmost term or you did it wrong. 5a times a minus 5 is a negative 25. What do I do when I move down a level? I subtract, but I hate to subtract. So I add the opposite. When I add those up, negative 28 plus 25 is a negative 3. I'm out of drop downs. I've hit my remainder. Once I hit my remainder, I still am sticking to the left, basically, but I am left with negative 3, and I would have it over a minus 5. So you'll see that on your sheet that instead of writing like plus and negative, they go minus 3 over a minus 5 because it was a negative 3. One more together, and we're going to be done. All right, so one more on a nice sheet of paper. Let's go take care of number, how about number 1? All right, so number 1 is up, and then I'm going to let you work. Right now, I'd like you to rank yourself. How do you think you're doing? We're about halfway through. Do you think you're at a 0, even with somebody helping you? I couldn't get it. I could stick to the left, but then I couldn't finish. I think I could start and get moving. This would be number 2, but I'm going to need a little help along the way. Number 3 would be, I can finish this. I think I can take number 1 all the way through to a right answer. And number 4 would be, I could teach someone. In order to decide that, I want you to start number 1 on your own. So if this video could be paused by my sub right now, if someone could go pause it, I want you all to try number 1 on your own. I want you to rank yourself before you try it. I'm going to give myself a 4 because I am teaching you how to do it. But you go put your level on there. If you give yourself a 0, then you weren't listening when I just said stick to the left, because that'll get you started. So let's write the problem down. We have an m squared. And we have a minus 7m and a minus 11. Write them neat, write them big, and take up lots of room. Watch your signs. And I'm going to have you guys try this one on your own and then have the video be turned back on. At that point, anyone who got it right should stay in here. If you're still getting them wrong and you're ranking yourself at a 0, 1, or 2, you should go with Mr. Nelson and he'll continue to work on these step by step. All right, so the video should get paused while they go try it. All right, so let's see if you got it right here. I know you can check on the sheet, but if you got it wrong, kind of see where you went wrong. If you got it right, you go ahead and tune me out, and you go ahead and continue on. I guess you'd continue with number 3 because we did number 2. But if you looked at the key and you got it wrong, watch me one more time. I stick to the left. I've highlighted them. You should circle them or highlight or something. And I divide them. M squared, taking out an M or dividing out an M, gives me M. What do I do with that? I dump it back in. Everybody should at least be able to start that. M times M is M squared. There should always be a match or you did it wrong. M times a minus 8 is a minus 8M. At this point, I draw a bar and I'm ready to drop a level. How do I do that? I subtract. But I don't like to subtract. I'm going to choose to add the opposite. These will always disappear or you did it wrong. Negative 7m plus 8m gives you 1m, and then you drop down the minus 11. We're mimicking long division. Then what do? I repeat. I stick to the left. What do I do to the left? I divide. I take 1m and divide it by basically 1m. Well, what does that give me? What's m divided by m? What's anything divided by itself? Well, it's 1. So I'd say m divided by m gives me a positive 1. And you'll notice on the sheet, that's why it says m plus 1. What do I do with that 1? I'm staying up here. I'm not ready to drop a level yet. I multiply it back in. 1m times 1m times 1, got the same thing. I always have that. 1 times a negative 8 gives me a minus 8. What do I do to drop a level? I subtract, but I hate to subtract, so I'm really going to add the opposite. When I add the opposite, negative 11 plus 8 gives me a minus 3. I have nothing else to drop down. So what does that mean? It means I've hit my remainder. So I take that remainder and I write it as a minus 3 over m minus 8. All right, you're ready to fly on your own here. If you ranked yourself at a 3 or 4 and you got it right, then you truly know your own ability. If you ranked yourself at a 0, that would worry me because the first, we should know to stick to the left and divide. Anybody who's at this point doesn't feel like you could work through them with minimal assistance should go with Mr. Nelson. He'll continue to work through them. He'll move on to number 3, do that one together until there's a comfort level. Otherwise, you can just stay and work at your own pace. If you get to the bottom, the back is extra credit. The only difference is they just get a little longer. So you'll have, it's basically, they're just longer. They take a long time. All right, so you guys have a good one, and I'll see you tomorrow. Over and out.